Hello, hello, welcome everyone, and welcome to another exciting talk, webinar. I think it's a new word we're working on with an old friend Joseph, who's going to tell us about United Diversity co-op that's been working on, also particularly Doughnut economics and the exciting stuff they're doing in Bridport. They're bringing lots of different groups together around Doughnut economics, which will need some explaining for some people, but without too much further ado, thank you very much for coming, Joseph. Over to Joseph. I'll make you a co-host. Over.
Thanks very much, Phoenix. So yeah, as some of you may have heard at the beginning before we did the go round, I don't have any presentation or slides prepared or anything. I've not been very well recently. Don't know what it is. Keep getting lightheaded all the time. So hopefully the doctors will help me work it out. And Pam, so very sorry to hear about your daughter. I think you actually interviewed me for a job a couple of years ago for the transition street stuff when you were at Sustainable Dorset. So yeah, lovely small world, and good to see some other people in Dorset here as well. So yeah, I'm Joseph from United Diversity. We are a co-op. I was based in London most of my life. I'm a Londoner really, but 4 years ago I moved with my family down to Bridport in Dorset, which is in the southwest for those who don't know. And yeah, Bridport's a market town of about 15,000 people if you include all the little parishes around it, which are due to become part of the same parish council in 2024. So that's going to be interesting. And yeah, for a long time I'm one of these people that sort of reads a lot and knows a lot. I'm sort of known for knowing stuff. I'm a good signposter. Like generally, if you want to do something, I've probably read a book about it, watched a documentary on it, and know someone who's done it. So I'm quite good at signposting people to get support to other things. Generally, in terms of work, I'm a sort of a bit of a geek, so I do websites and social media and stuff like that. And for a long time, I've had this plan, which I sort of codenamed the big plan, which is kind of what I would do if I had loads and loads of money. But as is often the case, I don't have loads of money, and I've decided to just try and do it anyway, without the money. I should have brought up some documents. I might try and find some documents which laid out the big plan, but roughly it was kind of like that if you could bring together lots of proven best practice in one area, and let's say you had a community organizer, maybe someone who's done the brilliant Trust the People course, which I highly recommend. It's just started recently, the latest. It's like an 8-week community organizing course, free online, really, really good. Trustthepeople.earth is the website. It's for someone to whack into the chat. And all this training that Citizens UK do around that stuff, which I've done as well. You might have a community enterprise coach, someone who's experienced at business, but also had some coaching training. That's mostly based on years ago, the New Economics Foundation did this thing called BizFizz, which was all about helping people start businesses it was trying to help people make a living out of whatever they're passionate about, sort of thing. And it was insanely successful. Like something like over 90% of the businesses that people started during that program still existed 4 years later, which is insanely successful. And I think the two bits of secret sauce that made it work, well, some of the secret sauces was they had this BizFizz coach who was an experienced business person who got training and coaching, and they had to find people through word of mouth. They could only go, and they weren't allowed to social media was quite new in those days anyway, but it had to be face-to-face, community organizing style, meet people face-to-face to find the people they'd work with. But they had this thing called the local panel, which was 20 to 40 usual suspects, the sort of general movers and shakers that you've got in any town or village or area. And they try and get those people to agree to two things. One is to come to a meeting for 2 hours a month to help with any cases that the coach might have. so someone might need some marketing help or some fundraising help or whatever. And it was all kept confidential, so they didn't know who the cases were to get rid of any prejudice and stuff like that. And they also had to introduce the coach to 10 other people that you might find, who'd be useful to know. So this BizFizz coach started with this core network of 20 to 40 people who were local movers and shakers who they could meet with for 2 hours every month, and a wider network of 20 to 400 people that they could draw on for help. And I think that was the secret sauce. I mean, I'm waffling on a bit too much, but it's okay. It's all good stuff. And then you need like what I was calling a full stack tech geek, someone who can do all the web stuff. And mostly that's been replaced in my book by tools that automate that. So I'm going to talk more about this platform called Cloudron, which is a piece of it's not a platform, it's a piece of software, which I'm assuming is a play on cauldron and Cloudron. But it makes it insanely easy to install and host and update and maintain over 100 different open source web apps. So everything you could need, really. And to sort of cut to the chase before I carry on waffling on, what United Diversity wants to start doing is to offer tech hosting and fiscal hosting. So basically a Cloudron server, we'll probably set up one for the whole climate emergency center as a whole, and then each individual center could have apps on there, so you could have your own instance of whatever you wanted, really. But probably most groups, I would argue, should start with a Nextcloud. That's the one. Ken's posted the link in the chat. Thanks, Ken. But you could have other things as well, like web chat and websites, and I'll show you a bit more of that later. And then in the roles you'd have in this big plan, if you had all the money to fund it all, you've got, let me see if I can remember them all. You've got the community organizer, sort of art of hosting, community dialogue person. You've got the community enterprise coach person. You've got the full stack, the web geek or Cloudron server these days. I can't remember what the other ones were. I'll pull up a document at some point. But yeah, I've decided to just start trying to do all this stuff anyway in Bridport without the resources and see what happens. Partly because I've recently got a loan which paid off loads of debt, which means I feel like I've got cash flow even though I don't. And really, as you all know, I'm sure, things are so serious and so it really is an emergency that I'm sort of not too, I'm not very risk averse, let's say. I'm willing to just see what happens. So yeah, what I'm trying to do at the moment, I'm framing it as I'm trying to get the Bridport bioregion into the Doughnut. And by the Doughnut, I mean the Doughnut as per Doughnut economics. So for those who don't know, well, let me screen share for a second. Oh, host disabled participant screen sharing. I don't think you've made me a co-host yet, Phoenix. Don't worry.
I did it twice. I think around that time there was a internet unstable sign. So
I am co-host. Sorry,
okay.
The buttons moved, so I hit the wrong button.
Okay. So it's still recording.
Yeah, you'll probably get 2 files now, which is a bit annoying, but
we'll work it out. Someone can work out how to stitch them together, not me.
Yeah. I'll be able to do that if it comes to it. Right, I'll share my screen and go to some of these websites. Hang on. Where's the browser? There.
We had Doughnut Economics Action Lab on the other week.
Yeah, so I mean, for those who saw that talk, you'll know what it's all about. I mean, there's the basic Doughnut graphic. I hope you can see that. Could someone wave?
Yeah.
So in the middle, you've got these are mostly from the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN that someone mentioned earlier. I mean, it's not all of them, it's just some that they've selected. And the idea is that we don't want anyone to fall through that hole and to have a shortfall of things like food and health and education and all the things that we need for a happy, healthy life. And that's the social foundation. We need a sort of base level social foundation that is met for everyone. But at the same time, a decade or so ago, hundreds of earth scientists were wondering, what is it about the planet that has kept it in this lovely, relatively stable period for the last 10 to 12,000 years, what's known as the Holocene, which has kind of been what's made civilization and agriculture possible, having this nice stable climate for so long. And they worked out that it's these nine Earth systems, and that if you exceed the boundary, these are the 9 planetary boundaries as defined by the Stockholm Resilience Institute. And if you overshoot this ecological ceiling, then we're sort of in trouble. I mean, the sad reality is that we've already overshot 6 of 9 at least, and probably 7 of 9.
Joseph, what's land conversion, and what are the 3 ones that we haven't gone over yet?
I'll go to, I think land conversion is mostly chopping down trees and growing feed for cattle instead. If you go to Stockholm, well, hang on, what's the quickest way for me to find this? There we go. Yeah.
Just to say, we usually have the presenter talk for about half an hour and then 20 minutes of questions or so. But if there are clarification questions, I think on another week, somebody said they don't mind taking them. But it's up to Joseph if you want to talk clear and then hand over questions, or whether you're interested in.
Yeah, if anyone wants to jump in with a question at any time, really, so I think this is their most up-to-date graphic here. So cool. So we've sorted out the ozone layer. That was like the nice global example of us sorting something out. We've got this aerosol loading. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it's not yet quantified, so we don't actually know whether we crossed it or not. And ocean acidification, I think most people would agree that probably already has been crossed. And in fact, Will Stephan, who was one of the people behind this, who sadly passed away just the other day, he was a pioneering earth and climate scientist from Australia. In an interview that he did about 2 years ago, he said that had already been crossed. It's just that the peer-reviewed science hasn't caught up yet, so it hasn't got into this graphic yet. And then there are these half of these other ones, because some of them are split. For example, the biogeological chemical flows, this phosphorus and nitrogen cycles. They're actually and novel entities. You can see they're actually way past where we've gone with climate change already. Some people might be aware of the Living Planet report that came out, the most recent one from the World Wildlife Fund, which showed that on average over the last 50 years, roughly, wildlife populations have dropped by 69%, call it 70, over the last 50 years. But if you look at freshwater wildlife, it's dropped by 84%. It's virtually all gone, basically. And that's mostly this. Too much fertilizer, too much pesticides running into the rivers, killing everything. Doesn't help that we now put loads of shit and sewage in our rivers as well, of course. So good luck to the people trying to sue the government to change that. I think there was something about that last week or recently.
They're challenging it legally, which is great. And I think they just had a bit of a victory this week that they're pushing the government back legally on it. Yeah.
So the donut is basically, get into the donut means get into the, if I can find that again. Sorry for it flicking through like this. The safe and just space for humanity, into this nice green space between the social foundation where everyone's got everything they need. the sentence they use is meeting the needs of all people within the means of the living planet. Basically, that's kind of the goal. Or a longer version is it's answering the question, how can our town or bioregion or area or whatever be home to a thriving people in a thriving place whilst respecting the well-being of all people and the health of the whole planet. And some people have already done lots of work to sort of bring this down to neighborhood scale. Probably one of the best examples are Civic Square in Birmingham. So they've come up with their own donut, and they've got, if you actually zoom into that, they've got slightly different things, you know, because they've decided they need a bit of culture and stuff as well, and not just those SDGs that Doughnut Economics Action Lab have chosen for the sort of global picture. And they've got various other things like soil health, and so so that's partly the process of adapting it to your local area. And Doughnut Economics Action Lab, which Kate Rayworth and her co-leaders or whatever of their organization, they've made a set of 5 tools for doing that, which basically they're a series of events you can have with your local community, nice participatory events that you run through and you sort of work out what is it the stuff we want to measure, where can we get the existing baseline data from, blah blah blah. And you can do, I mean, I won't go through all of those, but you can find them on their website here. I'll whack that link into the chat for good measure. I have no idea how long I've gone on for.
That's okay. We started a bit after 10 past. You've had about 20 minutes, maybe another 10 minutes if you want to chat, or 15.
Okay, yeah. Well, let me just flip through my.
I mean, you know, however long you need, and then there's usually 15, 20 minutes of questions at the end, kind of thing. But yeah, you've got, you know, 10, 15, 20, whatever you want.
I'll flip through my tabs quickly. So this is Cloudron. Someone put it in the thing. Self-hosting's never been simpler. So I've always been a big open source free software fan. I've been running Linux since ever on my laptop, so I'm using now. And I've always wanted to have alternatives to all the big tech giant tools on my own domains. And that's been possible for years, but always very hard. And you need a serious bunch of geeks and servers and everything to do it. This Cloudron platform, I keep saying platform, it's not a platform. Nothing is on their servers. It's a piece of software that you install on your server. It makes it insanely easy. And all of these, you can install all of these apps with one click, basically. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different apps here. And I love it so much that I'm in the process of sort of setting up a service where I sell hosted Cloudrons on renewable powered servers. Because even though it's really easy to install, just like WordPress is really easy to install, some people don't want to do it or don't trust themselves to do it, so they can pay someone else to do it. And so that's the tech hosting side of things. And I'll show you, well, I'll show you a bit more now. So here is, where is it? I'll just go there. I'll filter these out so you don't see all of them. So here's the Cloudron server I'm using for Bridport United Diversity, which is like, let's do all this, let's do everything in our place, try and get, so you can see I've got a WordPress website there. We've got a discourse forum. There's actually another WordPress website. There's a Ghost website, which is like good for newsletters and things. And because we want to try and start a media co-op, we've got all these Fediverse type alternatives to tech giants. So we've got an instance of Mastodon, which is a bit like an open source distributed federated Twitter. We're not actually really using these yet. I've just got them set up so that they're ready to go. We've got an instance of PeerTube, which is like a open source federated version of YouTube. where you can host videos. And we got an instance of pixel fed, which is a bit like a open source distributed federated version of Instagram. And what's nice is they all support this thing called ActivityPub, which is a sort of open source protocol. So you can log into these different sites using the logins from the other ones, and you can comment on one from the other and all that sort of stuff. So it's all very groovy. I mean, and you can see I could just go into an app store. I'll show you now. Let's say we wanted an instance of Nextcloud for another community. I could just come in here, click on there, say, yeah, I'll have that. I'm going to put it at testing because we're just testing. One of the nice things about Cloud Run is it has an LDAP server, which is basically you can, for most of the apps, you can have the same credentials for logging into all of them. So if I choose allow users from the United Diversity Bridport group, then automatically all the people in that group will be able to log into this Nextcloud. The way it goes, it's off installing that now. That takes a few moments.
So these would be apps that you're trying to get the donut economics on the ground in Bridport. These would be apps that some of the different groups could use more to communicate, to show the projects they're doing and things.
Yeah, exactly. So if I go to what I've done earlier, here's the United Diversity Bridport's Nextcloud. And Nextcloud itself has little apps that you can use. So there's a thing called Deck, which is a bit like Trello. So you can create cards, move them around. There isn't anything really here to look at yet, but you get the idea. If you've ever used Trello, you get the idea. I mean, there's a site called StackShare, which shows all the tools that people use. And if you look at their list of collaboration tools and business tools, there are 3 things that are in the top 10 of both of those. And it's Google Apps, Google Workspaces it's called, which is basically email, docs, drive, calendar. It's Slack for chat, and it's Trello for task lists. And Nextcloud, with a few apps installed, kind of does all of those things. I mean, it's not as slick as the multi-billion-dollar companies. But it's got this basic chat thing, which can do little video calls. Doesn't scale that well, but for one-to-one calls, it's really nice. Or for a handful of people. In some ways, it's even nicer than Zoom and other things in that you can actually edit a document together right here in this screen. It's got the deck like I showed you, and it's got a calendar. And it's got various email apps. I use this one called Snap Email. I could show you that in a different tab, but so I think that if you don't want to be dependent on tech giants, well, and of course there's the files as well. So we haven't got much in here yet because we've only been going a few weeks, but you could, instead of using Google Drive and Slack and Trello, you could just use Nextcloud, and that's what I'm proposing that CECs might want to do. And we hoped to have this all set up so as I understand it, Phoenix and Co have got various domain names like climateemergencycentre.org, for example. We could have, instead of my.bridport.coop, this could be my.climateemergencycentre.coop. And then in domains, you can add a domain, any domain you've got, and then you can install any app at that top level domain or any of its subdomains. So
would that then appear on the different websites? Sorry, I was so busy this week, I didn't get to link you back up to some server people on that technical question. But so would that mean, if we linked you up on there, then all of these different things could be loaded into different websites so that groups can use them?
So I could, let's say one of the groups, one of the CEC's website was commonscreation.org, for example, or I don't know if that's one I'm using or not. And I'm just going to get my API key, write that in there. Oh, I'll have to edit that out. I've now added a new domain, so now I can go to the App Store and install any of these things on that domain. So let's say I wanted Rocket Chat. Maybe I didn't, maybe Nextcloud Talk wasn't good enough for me. I wanted a bit more power. I could just say, yeah, let's have that at chat.commonscreation. And I'm gonna, well, for now, I'm gonna only let me have access to it. I mean, I wouldn't do that. And it goes off and does it. And it sets up all of the Let's Encrypt, HTTPS, SSL certificates, and it just sets it all up. It's bloody amazing. So that's the tech hosting bit. I think I've done enough about that because I'm waffling on too long. The other thing is the fiscal hosting. So before you've got a legal entity and a bank account and stuff, how do you collect money? The people that have solved that best are this group called Open Collective. Well, they're a company, but they're a very nice company. And they've got a plan to do what they call exit to the community. So they're going to become a sort of community-owned, cooperative-y type thing. And all their code's open source, although you can't actually self-host it at the moment. But yeah, opencollective.com. As it says, it's a legal and financial toolbook for grassroots groups. It's fundraising and legal status and money management platform for your community. So it basically makes it really easy to transparently collect and spend money. I've got one somewhere. I'll just do this, that'll be easier. There we go. So here's the United Diversity Bridport Open Collective. People can read a little bit about what it's about. They can see who's on the team, or they contribute. We've got two things. You can either contribute $5 a month or anything you like. And you can create tiers of any kind, and then it shows all the contributors and it shows the budget. And if we had more coming in, there'd be nice funky graphs.
Joseph, let's just link something up for me. I'm trying to get a Patreon account set up at the moment. It talks about different tiers, people who give you £1, £2 a month, or £5 or £10. And there's another group set up called Hero Circle, and it's a circle of climate campaigners, and they're pushing out to try and get funding for the 8 or 10 people in the circle. But this is a way, what you're showing there is a way of people donating to your project and supporting you and the team that's working on it in different ways. Is that correct?
Interesting. Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
I mean, because I went and loaded the Hero Circle website, you cracked up a little bit then. But yeah, yeah, I would say instead of a Patreon or anything like that, just use Open Collective because they're the nice people. And it's, yeah, you can collect. Well, and the other cool thing about it is that once you are a legal entity with a bank account, so you can see there's a fiscal host here. Fiscal host for United Diversity Bridport is United Diversity, because we do have a legal entity and a bank account. But once you've got a legal entity and a bank account, you can become a fiscal host for anyone else. So any CEC that is already has a legal structure and a bank account could go on to Open Collective and become a fiscal host, and then start offering all their local little community projects who don't have any way of collecting money this platform.
Okay, that's brilliant, Joseph, because it does come up from a lot of different groups when they're initially setting up about getting ethical banking, and we've been asked to hold a couple of grants for other groups around the country, and we've done that as our charity. But yeah, ways you can help other groups, set up financially is great. Just to say, we're probably 20 minutes to the thing. We can go over a little bit, but there may be some questions from the group. Just one, I suppose, mine was, you were going to talk a bit about you talked about this plan and donut economics in Bridport, and then suddenly you found there was a lot of excitement from the council and other groups within Bridport. You say a little bit about that before.
Yeah, okay. So it started, I got one late night on Sunday night after midnight, I posted this thing on Facebook. You know, I do use these horrible platforms as well. We've got a local group called Bridport Banter, which you can see has got nearly 17,000 people in, which is more people than live in Bridport, because you've got lots of people from the surrounding area who are in it as well. But I posted this post basically saying, this year I plan to make things happen in Bridport. What sort of things? I want to start a new bus. I want an events website. I want a nice big party showcasing all the talent. Maybe we should have a Bristol Cable-like community-owned newspaper. And let's work with the council and everyone else to try and unroll the Doughnut, which is linking through to that tools I showed earlier. And maybe we should, and to do all of this, let's start a new community benefit society. So I think that's the most suitable legal structure for doing these sorts of things. As the legal vehicle for doing all this stuff, maybe we'll do a community share issue, which is partly why you want to be a society instead of a company, because then you can do a community share issue, which is a way of inviting the general public to invest without loads of regulation. You know, maybe we'll buy a building and turn that into, well, I didn't say a CEC, but could be that or anything else. And as I said, there's a line in the IPCC 2018 1.5 degrees report that what we need is rapid, far-reaching and unprecedented changes in all aspects of society. Yeah, and they said that over 4 years ago now. So we need even more rapid and far-reaching, unprecedented changes in all aspects of society. I think we've needed that for a long time. As I've said here, it's probably unlikely that we're going to succeed in doing that, but we definitely won't succeed if we don't try, and maybe together we just might. And yeah, the original post, I mean, if you want to read the story, I posted the link which goes to this long update 2 weeks later. But yeah, after that, you know, had loads of hundreds, over 100 comments and loads of people liking it. Everyone was saying, excellent plan. This all sounds amazing. Nice ideas. Good luck. But I don't know how many of you have seen this classic video, the first follower, leadership lessons from the dancing guy. So what, it's worth watching. It was basically how important the first follower is. It turns the lone nut into a leader. At this stage, I was still a lone nut, but then someone said, brilliant, how can I help? They didn't just say brilliant. They're like, how can I help? I love your plan. How can I help? So I've now got a little signal group of 10 people who want to help, because I used the Cloudron thing to whack up a survey. There's a thing called Lime Survey, which is a bit like SurveyMonkey, but you can host it yourself. So that's survey.bridport.coop, blah, blah, blah. There's this survey, which is who are you and what projects do you want to help with? And it says, please don't bother filling this in if you haven't actually got any time or capacity to help. And if that's you, just give us money or subscribe to the newsletter or whatever. So, you know, we've had 10 people fill this in saying they want to help with the bus, or they want to help with the parties, or they want to help plant food around Bridport, or they want to help with transition streets or whatever it is. 2 of them I really love, because they click this last box, which is all of the above and then some.
Right.
So yeah, that's what started.
Question.
Go for it. Go for it. Did you say there was a question?
So there's a lot in there. So maybe, yeah, there is like 15 minutes to 8. So there's a lot in there, obviously, and Doughnut economics, the talk the other week was very popular, and it's obviously something that groups are working on. Helen's put a link in there to the Leeds group and saying that their group was involved with that in Civic Square. If folks have got any questions, can't quite see with the main screen up, but there's a reaction button down the bottom if you want to raise your hand for a question. I think Helen had one there.
Yeah, well, I've got 2 questions really. One is, does it have a really easy way for managing bookings? Because we've just moved into this centre on Monday, and we've got 8 rooms that we can sublet, and it's going to be quite awkward. But the other question is maybe relevant for 1 or 2 people here. What you're saying sounds wonderful, but it is going totally over my head. It kind of, you know, like you're saying, oh, I've been on Linux. Well, I looked at trying to use Linux and I can't even work out how you do it. You know, things like that. Is there somewhere you can do something for the much? I would say I'm a middle of the road techie, and I help other people in our group who are totally non-techies. Like, how do I react on Zoom again for the 97th time? You know, so there's a couple of people in Leeds who would probably like to talk to you on your level, who would understand it and could maybe get this up and running straight away for the Leeds group. But there's 50 people who will be a bit lost at the speed that this is going. Is there something we can do about that?
Well, not overnight. We can't suddenly make everyone techie. But yeah, I think it's like you said, people like yourself and myself, you need people that can translate from one to the other, you know, can help people handhold and things. And yeah, I mean, I originally was proposing to my group, for example, that we use that Nextcloud chat, because then we've got everything in one place. But a lot of them found that too geeky, because then they need another app and they've got to log into that. And I do things on my laptop mostly, but they were doing things on their phone. And, you know, on your laptop, you don't need another app, but on your phone, you do. I have managed to get them all using Signal instead of WhatsApp. So that's one thing. But sometimes you just got to go where people are and stay where they are. I mean, that's kind of why we're in Zoom now and not on Jitsi or Big Blue Button or Nextcloud Talk or something.
That's what I'm trying to get our XR group onto Big Blue Button, and they're all like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's sort of six, half of whatever that saying is, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah.
There are some things about Big Blue Button which are much easier and better.
Yeah. But have we got your details in here? Because I'll probably just pass this video on to the 2 that I think would be on your wavelength and see if they can use it.
Yeah, I put my name and number in there, but the best thing to do really is go to this. If you go to that link, ud.coop/quick chat.
Yeah.
That goes to my cal.com account, which is like the open source Calendly, which you can basically choose a time from my calendar to book a video call.
Yeah.
Or a local call if you're, or a face-to-face meeting if you're in Bridport. But since none of you are, yeah. I'm very happy to have video chats with anyone at any time, time allowing. But
I think
let's hopefully that's enough for now, Helen.
Yeah.
Should we go over to Debs and Preston?
Yeah, I was just going to say really same as Helen, because I consider myself like middle of the road techie, and I can find my way around Microsoft and Zoom and Facebook and Twitter and things like that. But I found like if we're going to transfer from one platform to another, it loses people along the way, because we've tried Slack, we've tried Trello, and not many people use it. Not many people are interacting because they're too used to using like Messenger and Facebook and that. So it's trying to bring like people along with you and selling it to people, because it's a bit like over my head. I'm like, oh, like, well, what's the like alternative Facebook and what's the alternative Zoom and all of that? Like, I like the idea of having everything in one place, like if it's going to help you with like accounts and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think all these tools really are, I mostly see them as for the team. Like, so most groups have got like a core team who are actually doing stuff. And it helps if they're all on the same page. And yeah, it definitely, I hear you on terms of moving from one thing to another. But if you start as you mean to go on, which obviously for a lot of you is already too late, if you start using one of these things, then it, and you know, you all agree. There's this. I'll share a link, but there's this guy Richard Bartlett who's from Lumio and the Hum and Spiral Network. And he says he's written a book which is only sort of half finished, but it's published anyway, called Patterns for Decentralized Organizing. And it's basically like you've got to one of the first things to do is to agree which tech you're going to use and use it. So like in some ways it doesn't matter. I would prefer everyone to not use tech giant tools. But if that's what you're going to use or that's what you're already using, then go for it in some ways. Phoenix?
Yeah, can you put a link in for that Lumio guy and the patterns of decentralized organizing? It brings up a few different things. I mean, the first thing on my list there was, it would be good to have a climate emergency centre tech working group that can look at different things that can help tech-wise for community organising. There is obviously people at different levels of tech experience and tech awareness. We've long talked about kind of having workshops where older and younger people help each other with tech, shall we say. We've got a group here that's setting up the media lab at Cockfosters, and they're one of their things is about getting tech out to older people and disadvantaged people and minority people and helping them with the tech. Sometimes we all struggle a bit with certain platforms or too many platforms, but it is really essential that we start to learn new ways of communicating things. There was a group got in touch early on from Swansea, and they were working on something called Vocal Eyes, VOCALEYES. I think we could look it up and put it in the chat or something good. And they were talking about community discussion on what they wanted to have happen and what money would be spent on. So they worked with the local council in Swansea, and they brought in this Vocalise platform. And the council said, okay, what would you like to spend? I think it was something like, £100,000 on or something. So there was a big community debate and what they would do with it, a park, a venture playground, a skate park, putting it into regrowing stuff. And they actually had a democratic debate online, and people voted for different things and stuff. There is in the future, we would like to see lots of people's assemblies happening through the different climate emergency centres. It's already started in a number of them, and we've already got councils with buy-in from Staines across to Islington, and others who are Bristol saying they're into people's assemblies. There must be some kind of tech platform that we can record the discussions, the ideas, the proposals of things, and then put that to the council or government. That's maybe future tech kind of thing. We need to move. Lumio was another one. It came out of the Occupy movement, and it was ways of making decisions collectively and things. And, we all rely a bit too much on the tech giants. It's pretty shocking what Facebook did with manipulating elections and Cambridge Analytica and all that kind of thing. So the more we can be in more balanced platforms, that's good, but people take a while to learn them. So there's a few bits there. Over to the rest of the University Challenge panel for any questions about Bridport donut economics or how we can use tech to help communities. We're coming what are we time-wise? Yeah, we're getting about 5-2. So any other feedback there from folks? Any questions over?
Well, people think one other thing is like having an email newsletter, I think, is a nice old tech way that everyone can engage with. So that's why we've got that's why we've got one of those. So like we've probably got 30 people on that so far. And similarly, there's the Alternative, who are a group set up by Indra Adnan. I'll paste some of these links in the chat as well. They have this idea of what they call a CAN, which is a community agency network or a citizen action network. And they have the whole thing about how the first thing to do is have a friendly, which is, a nice cultural event with cheap or free food. First of all, just get people together without any agenda, really. Because, I mean, my view is that ultimately what creates resilience is relationships between people. And most of us in our culture have what I call community deficit disorder. The age of cheap energy and neoliberal economics has made us all isolated individuals, and which is both terrible for the planet and terrible for our soul. And we really need to rebuild those connections with each other. There's a project called Participatory City Project, who've got a great thing called Tomorrow Today Streets. I'll whack that link in there as well.
Put that in the chat. I've heard of participatory cities.
Yeah, they've got a really nice sentence based on loads and loads of research, which is it's all about creating as many opportunities as possible for people to co-produce something tangible as a group of equal peers. If you do that over and over and over again, whether it's let's cook together, let's plant flowers together, let's have a party together, and on and on and on, then you build the trusted relationships with each other upon which you can plant a successful seed of like a co-op that might actually work. Then you start doing your community energy projects and you're buying your buildings and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's kind of, and unfortunately for the urgency of all this, you can't do that. You can only do it at the speed of trust.
I mean, I think there's definitely an ongoing tech working group kind of thing we should form about how we can help, and you're right, deciding early on what platforms the groups are going to use and how. I mean, just basically on an email newsletter, groups have asked, has anyone got newsletter template? I'd like to work out, is there an email one we should use, or should I move to MailChimp, or should I move to Action Network and that kind of thing? I know Action Network was used a lot by a lot of big groups, but okay, guys, I think we're close to the 8 o'clock, and thank you very much, Joseph, for all the amazing knowledge there and a lot of good links. I think there's a lot in the chat. Please do give us a contact if you haven't given us one already. So maybe should we just go around the screen doing checkouts or any final feedback or comments from folks, and let's get those Doughnut economic local community tech supported community things going wherever we are. We all need to learn from each other. So that's brilliant, Joseph. Thank you so much. There's tons of useful information and knowledge.
Welcome. I hope that wasn't too rambling and was useful.
We're going to have the tech working group for old and young and new people and people like me who aren't great at tech. I'm about mid-level, like Helen and Deb just said, to all support each other through learning these new platforms and things. So who would like to do a checkout or feedback or anything they want to parting comments? Over, folks. Over to the University Challenge panel. Who wants to go first? Over. Caroline in Oxford, Brains of Britain. Might call Oxford and Cambridge.
I'll go. Happy to go. Well, I can say that I was bored rigid to begin with because trying to absorb so much tech information, but ended up riveted. So, it was really, really actually an eye-opener as to how, or a brain opener, whatever you like to call it, a revelation anyway. Thank you.
You're welcome, Caroline. Thank you.
That's great from the Oxford team. Lovely. Yeah, practical applications.
Ken had his hand up as well.
Yeah, just very quickly, guys, because I've got to go now. That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Joseph. Good to catch up with you. Thanks for that information. I'll pass it on to our CEC crew in Weymouth. And hope to see you guys. Is this every Wednesday night, is it, Phoenix? Is that what you're doing here?
Every Wednesday, 7 o'clock, we're doing a kind of webinar talk by a person every other week. And then the Wednesday in between is it's basically just a general from around the network roundup of how you're doing, any advice, support, or so we go around the screen and just tell each other where we're at, hey Oswestry, if you want to send us a copy of the lease or whatever, any questions we've got, and so yeah, it's alternating, a talk one Wednesday and the other Wednesday by our specific speaker, and then the other Wednesday is a go around the UK network. But that's when we can really talk a lot more and help each other with different.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I'll pass that on to the crew in Weymouth anyway, and hopefully they'll jump in on this in future. Phoenix, if you let me have your email, I'll just drop across what I put. Not very much, but I put all those links down there. So hopefully, because I see I can't copy the chat here. Normally you can save the chat. For some reason, I've got no save.
Just putting it in there. Climate EC, and I'm not sure the Weymouth lot got it, but there's I'll stick in the welcome pack, and there is a Telegram group there. If you keep an eye on the Telegram group, that's mainly the active one for telling people, different talks that are coming up, kind of thing and stuff. Thank you very much.
All right, that's great. Thanks, guys.
Who wants to go next?
Helen?
Yeah, so yes, I think that probably is very interesting, but it was too fast paced for me. But it's not a criticism; it's just a comment on an old lady's brain. I think possibly in our next meeting we'll be trying to sort this out amongst ourselves. That might be quite a good idea for the next meeting. Just trying to work out where we are all on tech and see what we need to work from there. Just a suggestion. And then I'm off to brush my rocking horse's hair.
Yeah.
That's not a euphemism, is it? What's going on there?
No, I was driving yesterday and I saw someone putting a rocking horse outside their front wall and a kid's bike, and I pulled up and said, "Are you getting rid of that?" So I've got it for the Climate Emergency Centre, and nobody else knows. They think I'm bringing down cups tomorrow to sort things out, but I'm going to have a rocking horse under my arm instead. But I've been washing it.
Fantastic.
Can you give us a bell, Helen, about letting out space to other groups? There's a few factors. A quick chat with you on, please. Okay, who wants to go next? Sunny Preston.
I was just laughing, Phoenix, because you had the Trojan horse. That one's got a rocking horse.
Oh yes, the Trojan horse.
And I've been making candles today. I've come up with a way to recycle candles, and I'm quite chuffed with myself. I've got loads of big candles for free, but I've got blue hands. I'll pass on to. Have you been, Marcia?
No, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just on my phone. I think I got on the wrong Zoom, but it's been interesting. I thought it was going to be about biodiversity somehow. Anyway.
That's probably because I had the word bioregion.
That's what it was then, yeah. Anyway, I'm sort of lower medium techie, I would say. Some people think I'm much techier than they are. It's always good to have a bit of input, and yeah, what you said, Joseph, of Felix was accessible, and I got some of it. So yeah, it's always good to expand one's comfort zone with tech. And it's been interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. I sort of wish I'd spent less on tech and more on community deficit disorder, but anyway.
That's great phrasing. Community. I love it. Yeah, good one. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Whereabouts around the country are you, Marcia?
Oh, sorry. Devon, Totnes.
Good, right. There we go. Bioregional link ups, what we're trying to do. Which have each other. Okay, who wants to go next? Check out Pius in sunny Uganda, the only really sunny place because it's a bit grey. Yeah? Are you with us, Brother Pius?
Thank you, Phoenix. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I was just learning a lot of new things and getting confused here and there, but I've taken some notes, and I've not also written the links. I'll try to go through during the free time, and I get to learn more about what he was teaching us. Hopefully the links work in Africa. I don't know yet, but I'll confirm.
Lovely. Always a pleasure to have you beaming in from Uganda, Pius. Any way we can support Pius with some crowdfunding. He wants someone to help with crowdfunding from the UK so that we can help to raise schools' awareness in Uganda about climate change, but also it's sponsoring fruit trees for families out there.
I have suggested Leeds CEC can do that, and I've got a positive reaction. So hopefully when we get a little bit going.
Awesome.
How
Okay,
much is it? How much is a tree, Pius? In how much is a fruit tree in Uganda?
Yes, one by our fruit tree. Hello.
Hello. Is that £1 a fruit tree, wasn't it?
Yes, £1 can buy a fruit tree.
And 20 fruit trees can support a family in the longer term, I think was one of the things you said in his talk. So that's great, Helen. Let's link up Leeds to Uganda. That would be fantastic. And, you know, international and bioregional solidarity. I think local act global.
Pius, I'll email you. I know I've ignored you for a week or two, but I'll email you.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Really, that we've been working on that a few weeks, so really happy to see that. Okay, who else? Who's still to go on the University Challenge panel? Have we all been? Oswestry or Hull?
I can go if you like. It was interesting to Marcia's in Totnes because some of the stuff Joseph was saying reminded me very much of that book, which was written in Totnes. So there you go.
That was Rob Hopkins.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite books. It's always to hand.
Good, isn't it? Yeah.
Classic stuff. And when he wrote that, it really informed a lot of what we do at our CEC, at Creative Cultural, which is very useful. Tech-wise, I'm not that techie, even though I do code, but that's a big world, and there's a lot of stuff in that. But I am the sustainability officer for Fund Green Tech and Pangalactic, which is lots of people doing decentralized blockchain to record things for the green future. As David Attenborough said in his most recent book, blockchain is very useful for recording supply chains and making it so that people can't hide things. So yeah, I work with a group who do that, and I do the sustainability side for them, and they're basically solar punks like Phoenix, who just want to decentralize everything and make it so that everything is immutable and we all know what's going on in the world. So it'd be really good to introduce them to you at some point, and maybe introduce Flo, who is the CEO and much brighter than I am, into a chat with the group around technology as well, and how we use it.
Can you put the links in the links for those things in the chat, Alan?
I could do. I wouldn't know which links to share. But yeah, I could email people anyway, and I could put it in the Telegram and
Telegram.
Of course, maybe I should be putting in something else that's an alternative to Telegram. I don't know. But Telegram will do for now. But yeah, I'll find out which links to share. I'll have to speak to Flo because he's the CEO. He knows stuff. All I can do is tell him, whether what we're doing is green enough, and keep coming up with new plans for how we're going to do that differently.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put my hand up now and say it probably isn't if you're using a blockchain, because they're just energy intensive and slow, and I'm not a fan personally. But
well, that depends on how you do them.
Know what you're up to, or what they're up to.
Yeah, so we found a way of doing it which doesn't work like that, which is what it's all about, using satellites because they're solar powered and they're computers in the sky. So I can tell you all about that anyway, but yeah, it's another story.
Link up, guys. I think there's a tech working group in the offing, because we do need help with this. How do we use evolving tech to help cutting edge community centres accelerate? There's all sorts of questions out there, from simple email network to alternatives, Mastodon to whatever it is. We need to help each other. Is there one more person to go on the checkouts? John, you can go. John?
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. Yeah, obviously the tech stuff goes over my head a bit as well, but I know who to ask now if we want any advice. But the thing I was really impressed with is when you put out your message on your chat group, and you built that kind of inspirational meeting online. So obviously we were planning to do that in our space and get the community involved, but the idea that we could just do it in a kind of a community-based chat is quite good. I know there is a group actually going around in Oswestry, I think, called Community Connectors. So that's quite interesting. So you just put a long rant on there, didn't you, and sort of got people excited about it. And
yeah, I mean, there were some people that came on who were real devil's advocates, who were like, "Oh, who's going to drive the bus, and how's that going to work, and that's not going to work, and that's never going to work, and what?" And for a while, I was engaging them and asking their best questions as best as I could. And then I said, "Can I just ask, have you got any intention whatsoever of helping or contributing to any of this, or are you just being a devil's advocate, valid a role as that is?" And they said, "Oh yeah, 100% devil's advocate." And I was like, "Okay, well, for now, I'm not going to engage with you any further. But when we've got actual plans, like this is just a list of random ideas. When we've got actual plans, maybe we'll come back to you for some stress testing and some idea hole poking, because that is a useful role. But at this stage, we're going to ride the wave of enthusiasm." But yeah, I think one of the things that worked was having a lot of different things that people can see themselves getting involved in. You know, there was a bus to a party to a newspaper to buy a building, and some big audacious ones. Because, you know, there's a great quote, I can't remember it exactly, but it's basically like, you know, if you want someone to build a boat, you don't teach them to build a boat, you get them to long for the sea. You know, that you've got to have some kind of big audacious goal ironically, the one I put there about buying this building that's been empty for a while, most people who've reached out to me have said that they don't think that's a good idea. But it served its purpose. It was a sort of big audacious goal that inspired people, and it did inspire people, so that worked.
I think this. Go on, finish sentence. Go on.
Yeah. I mean, and so I've if you read my long update, I say that I agree that we probably shouldn't buy that building, but to keep things bold and audacious, we want to buy multiple buildings and loads of land. So anyway,
I think I've been reading recently all the audio books on 7 habits of highly effective people, and one of them it says is something about start with the end plan of what you actually want to do. And your thing about making a big plan and dreaming big, I mean, you know, we need a lot more funding and support in all these projects. If you got £500,000 or £1 million into your project, what would you do with it? You know, just dream big. And we need spaces for all of these many other hundreds of projects to come together in our communities, and the ways for them to communicate with and amongst each other. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've probably come to the end of checkouts. Thank you very much for giving us an hour or so of your very precious time. Joseph, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, and thanks to my wife Gloria for doing the childcare while I'm here. It's bedtime now. Hope I'm not talking too loudly.
Big up. Thanks for all your legendary work for decades, Joseph.
I'll just reiterate, do book me for video calls, because I like the human connection to get rid of my community deficit disorder, and I mean it. I'm a useful signposter, if nothing else.
I think you do need that big building to get rid of community deficit disorder in Bridport. Go for it. And many other buildings. All right, guys, big love. Keep networking. See you next week for a general discussion chat and some more talks and webinars soon. Lots of love. Thanks for coming.
Thanks all.
Great night.
Bye.
Save the chat. And Joseph, stop recording here. Nice one.
Shall I stop recording?
Yep. Okay. Stop recording.